Okay, that's me before I was a victim. Now I do consider myself a victim. And I'm wondering what you think when you hear the word victim or victim mentality. I discovered when I became a victim that the world is not a friendly place for people who've experienced sexual abuse, sexual assault, and other crimes. My story started in 1985. I joined a local swim team. I remember I had on a suit with a skirt and I felt really, really awesome. I had a unibrow and long hair and no swim cap, and I'm like, I'm gonna swim. So I jumped in and I remember feeling strangled by my hair, and I just absolutely loved it until after practice I was told I couldn't wear a skirted suit. And I'm like, well, that's no fun. That day I met my swim coach, who also ended up being my perpetrator. Like most victims, I compartmentalized that abuse in order to live a normal life. I kept the abuse a secret even from myself. That's how strong my drive for a normal life was. And that lasted until about 2014, when I started having a sinking feeling that something was wrong with my past. And I'm very traditional. I grew up on Mr. Rogers. I thought, who do I call when there's a problem like this? I called the police. And I said, I have a crime to report. I'm not sure if it was a crime. I was very kind of all over the place. And the woman who picked up the phone said, come on in, tell us what you have. And at that point, I thought maybe I would corroborate somebody else's story. Maybe somebody else would say, oh, he was my swim coach too. And I remember that happened to me. Instead, I gave a statement. We did a phone sting. During the course of the 2-hour phone sting, I heard about my abuse from my perpetrator for the first time. So he told me what had happened to me as a child. And initially I felt really empowered. It's like, go me. I remember high-fiving the detective because we had felonies and that was the goal. He fell for it. Leaving the station though, I realized I was no longer Dani Bostick. I was victim A. And that did not sit well with me at all. First, I had to face the fact that I had been abused, which was a shock and went against everything I had stood for up to that point. Then I had to realize I was harmed by this crime. Things about my life that I had normalized were a symptom of having been abused throughout my childhood. Once the dust settled, I realized the world is not a friendly place for victims at all. And I thought recently about ways society could be better. And it doesn't involve hashtags or attending rallies. It's very basic. It's one word, how we use the word victim. And the second is one state of being, that silence. A victim is simply a person harmed, injured, or killed as a result of a crime, accident, or other event or action. That fit me. A crime happened to me. I was harmed by it. There's no denying that. Unfortunately, I hated victims before I was a victim and even once I got that label. Why? Victims are pathetic. Victims seek attention. Victims are pitiful. You hear about victim mentality, people choosing to be a victim. And when I was simply victim A, before my name was associated with the case, I was a brunt of a lot of comments about victims that fed the very perception I already had about myself. I felt damaged, I felt ashamed, I felt pathetic. This was an anonymous online comment, although I will say I received comments like this in person from people who knew me but didn't know me to be the victim. So somebody had written, this was over 25 years ago. This man is now guilty until proven innocent. I played baseball as a youth and teen. I also swam on our swim team. Ever see a coach smack another guy's bottom in baseball? OMG, I was molested. I should sue. She should be ashamed of herself. I guarantee you, even without statements like this, victims of sexual abuse have enough shame to go around. The problem is not limited to society. We have victims in the media. There's often a perception, you see the phrase, why would anybody choose to be a victim? When I self-identify as a victim, I've had people say, no, you're a survivor. I'm not. I'm a victim. A crime happened to me and I was harmed by it. And I'm not going to sanitize my reality and whitewash it for society. So here we have a National Review article from just a couple weeks ago. In victim culture, a person cultivates their sense of weakness and fragility, actively retarding the process of growing up. I'll stop there and say in some ways I function as an 8-year-old, the age I was when I was abused. So there is truth to this, but this is not uplifting. I'd underestimated the allure of victim status, the ease with which one can achieve power and sympathy all at once. And I'll tell you there that sympathy comes in the form of pity. I was peerless in the sense that people pity victims. They weren't sitting next to me in my journey. They were pitying me, and that felt awful. Here's an article from Forbes, and there are innumerable articles like this. There's something compelling about being a victim of circumstances, but passivity is a trap. I can choose to be a victim, or I can choose to survive and thrive while supporting my family. Not a difficult choice, is it? Well, guess what? It's not my choice. It was my perpetrator's choice. There is no choosing to be a victim. The only person who has a choice in the matter is the person who decides to perpetrate. So these statements here feed into the worst aspects of rape culture and victim shaming. That victims seek attention, that they lie, that it's some special status, and lots of people use the word victim as a slur. And it ends up that all the shame and negativity that should belong to the perpetrator alone is transferred to the victim. And that's what I experienced. The alternative to being a victim, this slide is left blank intentionally, is silence. People do not talk about sexual abuse. People do not talk about sexual assault. Nobody wants to be labeled a victim. And unfortunately, when you walk into a police station and share your story, you walk in with a name and you leave as a victim. I was victim A. The alternative is silence. Silence carries its own set of problems. Silence is a perpetrator's legacy. You're trained to be silent. You're threatened. You don't dare speak up for disrupting your family dynamic and being called a liar. I remember walking through the grocery store after I reported my crime. There was a spill on aisle 5. I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if they could say, are there any victims in this store? Meet up in aisle 5. I felt so alone, yet I knew statistically there were other people in the grocery store who shared my story. I did not know who they are or who they were. It's very isolating to live a life of silence, and you live a lie. It also becomes a public safety issue. When victims don't speak up or go to the police, perpetrators live their life as they wish, while victims are silenced and muzzled. My goal, my purpose in life is to disrupt the culture of shame and silence surrounding sexual abuse and sexual assault. Let's stop using the word victim as a slur. I am a victim. I have a victim mentality. That is me before I was a victim, and that is me now. I can live my life unashamed and unsilenced. And I'm going to close with a quote. 10 people who speak make more noise than 10,000 who are silent. Thank you.